I'm afraid about abortion is that it's going to always happen anyway. It's one of those things that they try and say, like, now that it's illegal, it'll stop. But, like, it's been, what do they say, 90? The numbers of abortions are, like, staggering when you look at them. And those are the ones only on record in the United States that we know of.
So there was an instance of a study that was performed on back alley abortions, which I know is a big topic that people talk about a lot. The guy went to his deathbed and he admitted that, like, half of the numbers he had just made up, just like that. He just made it up. He just wanted abortion to happen. He wanted it to be legalized. He literally lied. And I need to find the study. You guys are welcome to fact check me. But based on what my understanding of the back alley abortion thing, women are more likely to die in an actual legalized setting, even with medical care. They're more likely to have negative response to it and super regret after the fact than any kind of back alley abortion.
Yeah, and I don't agree with the idea that they'll happen anyway. You know, we hear that a lot from a lot of the pro-abortion activists. Used to be pro-choice people, but I don't know where they went because I still consider myself pro-choice. But the argument is that it'll it'll happen anyway. I'm like, I don't believe that's true. I believe it may. You know, there was like that viral instance. I don't know who it was. They held up a coat hanger. You know, we're going back to that or whatever. And I'm like, that's messed up. I'm not a fan of that at all. But I think an overwhelming majority of women would just have babies.
But what would happen? Would they get, like, criminalized? The ones that tried to get an abortion?
What this law says is that someone can sue if they find out someone aided or got an abortion, and they can be awarded up to like $10,000. I think it is, right?
10 grand.
But not the woman herself.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You can't sue the woman. You can sue the doctor.
It is really clever what they did. So apparently, it used to be that these laws always got struck down because the state had no right to intervene in medical procedures. And so the state is saying the law actually bars the state from enforcing this. It only allows for lawsuits where civil cases are brought by other citizens. So that's apparently how they're planning to get around this. But again, they're acting like it's the end of Roe v. Wade. But like you said, this was dropped because of lack of standing. In which case, it could be another week or when it goes into effect, I think, was it like September?
It went into effect yesterday.
Oh, okay, on the 1st, right. So we could have someone right now just be like, okay, I'm suing, and then the Supreme Court could be like, yeah, you can't do it.
And they will, yeah, and it will go on. The law will be prevented from taking effect, and they'll go into lawsuit. And I mean, I don't think it's going to change anything in the courts, but it is a necessary step.
You know what my issue is with the whole thing? You know, I don't know where the line is that you allow the government to say we can mandate somebody provide their body to somebody else. I don't know where that line is, where the government is allowed to intervene in that capacity. And I'm very scared about what that means when we accept the government can intervene in that capacity. So let's just say, here's the conundrum. A woman, ends up, pregnant, and there's a health risk, a very serious health risk, and she's devastated by this. She desperately wants to have children, and she's struggling with it. And so they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, the baby will not survive, and neither will you. Like, our only option right now is termination. And then what? You got to file a petition to the state? Or is that an exemption?
In the Texas law, it's an exemption.
So the doctor can then say...
Incest, rape, health of the mother are all exempted from this law. That's when you just said...
Really? Incest and rape?
And when you said this law was very cleverly crafted, this law was very cleverly crafted.
But I wouldn't say... clever may be the wrong word. I think perhaps the answer to that is fairly.
Solid,
yeah.
So
they don't want this law to get struck down by the typical
no.
Ways that it's been struck down in the past.
It's not about striking down. Does that mean to say that they're actually creating a window for abortion as use of as contraception? If there is a medical exemption, meaning you can get a termination due to the health of the mother, incest or rape?
Well, after 6 weeks. Before 6 weeks, anyone can have one. There's no restrictions for before 6 weeks.
That means
this is only after the 6 week mark.
That means the bill is actually saying women are free to use abortion as a form of contraception.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Until 6 weeks.
And then is that 6 weeks from conception? I was just reading about this, and it says sometimes it's not until 2 weeks after your last period that you can actually conceive. So they'll think they're pregnant for 2 weeks, and then they don't actually get pregnant, and then all of a sudden they're pregnant.
Well, it's the heartbeat bill, so it's not actually about 6 weeks. It's about if they can detect a heartbeat, then you can't get an abortion, unless there's exceptions, in those regards. So here's the conundrum: does the state then say, "Sorry, we don't care about the circumstances or whatever it may be outside of these exemptions. We are going to mandate your body is provided to this other independent, living creature."
Confirmed. 2 weeks. Conception typically occurs about 2 weeks after your last period begins.
All I know is that in case any one of the viewers are like, why are you guys talking about this? Our friend Jack Posobiec made it clear, since men can get pregnant now,
That's
men
right.
can talk about abortion.
That's correct.
And I was like, that was one of the
Entitled to
most
talk
genius
about it.
tweets I ever saw. And he was like, if men can get pregnant,
That's
we can
correct.
talk about abortion.
Yes, but now it's are you a birthing person?
But not talking about this law, which was what people were saying. Jen Psaki, the president, they all talked about how this is a threat to the rights of women. So the birthing person was not used today. So now we are back to women are the ones getting pregnant, which I think for the trans community is incredibly transphobic.
These are
the gymnastics we play.
I talked with Glenn Beck, and we had a really, really great conversation about it, because I was just like, I hear all your arguments. I agree with a lot of your, I agree with your starting point and where your arguments are coming from. But then I think about the government saying, at this point in time, that independent living creature that is living off of your blood and using your body, well, we're going to make sure that that stays that way. And I'm like, man, but this is my body. I have one life to live. I don't want anybody to be like, I'm going to provide that body to somebody else by force. And I know a lot of people don't like slippery slope arguments, but could there be a point where it's like, there's an accident and the government says, well, you crashed your car and the person you hit, you both have the same blood type, so we're going to mandate you give blood to keep them alive. Like, at what point are they then going to get more and more invasive, because entertaining the idea that the government has a right to intervene, that you provide your body to someone else for some moral reason? Well, the person's going to die, and we can't let a life die, especially when you have the opportunity to provide something to save them, so we're going to mandate you do. Then we have to start having arguments about how much of your body is welcome to be, given to somebody else. Now, of course, I know the response to this is simply that, like, pregnancy is a unique circumstance outside of injury, so we could easily carve that out and say pregnancy, especially arising from the individual choices, like, because rape is exempted. This is a woman who made a choice, got pregnant, and now is responsible for that action. I understand that. There's like a libertarian wall that stands before me, and I'm like, I don't know how you get past that. For me, morally, I don't know.
Well, I think libertarians, even as a political party, their platform is pro-choice. I think most libertarian
Except for the Mises
philosophy.
Caucus.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Dave Smith is pro-life.
Good for them.
How could you be libertarian and be pro-life?
Yeah.
Because their argument is that the state, libertarians do believe in the state, and they believe that, like, one of the paramount things of the state's mission is to protect life.
What kind of life, though?
So, like, we have a government that is trying to make sure people can live, and it's one of the goals of government to prevent death. So stop someone from murdering somebody else. And that's why they're pro-life. Because they view the baby with a heartbeat as its own independent living entity. It has its own DNA. It has its own heartbeat. It is growing and developing. And at that point, removing it from the womb would terminate it, in which case, you can't do that. But I do have a question in that capacity then. Would there be a law that says the women can remove the baby at around 5 months when the baby becomes viable outside of the womb and then put into care and then adopted? You know what I mean? Because if the real issue is killing the baby, then once the baby comes to a point where they know the fetus to be viable, outside of the womb, could it then be removed? Like, not to kill it, but to actually let it grow and live and flourish.
Very risky option.
Yeah.
It is, I know.
Yeah.
I don't think most parents don't want to have a preemie that's
But think about the argument. If the argument is that you can't end the life,
I get it.
then what if it doesn't end the life?
Yeah.
And you then sever it from, the womb.
I don't see that as a viable alternative to the
But
problem here.
But if the baby can live, isn't that...
I don't think that's guaranteed at the 5-month mark.
It's not guaranteed. So then would there be a legal debate over, like, well, at 6 months, actually, you can, they can do a C-section or put the woman into forced labor, and then the baby can be premature and then be treated to grow and survive because it works. It doesn't kill the baby then, right? So is it abortion, or is it...
It wouldn't be abortion.
Induced premature labor
Right.
and adoption.
Yeah. It'd be an early pregnancy, induced pregnancy, and or induced labor, yeah.
The challenge I think that we're dealing with is the reality of what it means to be a living entity, trying to ask ourselves questions about individual sovereignty, bodily autonomy, but also the fact that we are biological entities that use our bodies for reproduction. And then what does it mean that when a woman gets pregnant, there are two individuals involved? That's how the law views it, especially in car accidents and murder cases. If the woman's pregnant, there's two entities. And then how do you determine rights for people who are attached to each other? I'll give you another wild, crazy scenario. Conjoined twins. And, they're both legally carrying firearms in the good old state of West Virginia. but then one of the conjoined twins in a fit of rage just freaks out and shoots somebody in cold blood.
Wow.
Do you then put the other twin into prison?
Oh.
Like serious? I'm not saying
No,
that.
that's a fascinating.
You gotta,
I'm
you gotta say
simply-
no to that. You
Argument.
can't.
But hold on, look, I'm simply bringing this up to show the problem of trying to guarantee liberties to an individual when they're joined together.
So
Like, I don't have the answers
So
to these
basically,
things.
we need a law that says conjoined twins cannot possess firearms.
Yeah.
Like,
That's how you get away with.
if you have someone on an intubator and they're unconscious, and you are like their family member, you have the right to pull the plug on that machine, I believe, right? In most states.
No,
think
not.
it
This was the what was it?
depends.
The Terry
Terry
Chavo?
Chavo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's states where you can't do it, no matter what.
Okay, that's similar to abortion because the baby can't speak for itself. It's essentially unconscious inside of you, and you have full control of its breathing and its. So you have to make the decision whether it's going to get the plug pulled or not.
Then there's euthanasia,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, man, I do not have the like. I don't know.
I have friends flat out who say when I hit 72, and if I start having, we talked about dementia before we went
Right,
on.
yeah.
They were like, I am flying myself to Switzerland, and they're like, I am not going to go through that myself. I'm not going to put my family through that. It's already daunting to have like a 40-year-old friend say, oh no, that's the plan. But people, yeah.
I would encourage them to research psilocybin before they do that. I hear that that's good for that helps dementia, clear the plaque off the neurons.
Interesting.
plaque, eh?
No, actually, I think it's THC. THC will eat the plaque off the neurons in your brain.
I don't know about that, Ian.
Yeah, there's video.
You-
There's
you-
video of it. Go on YouTube and watch
All right,
THC eating.
Is THC the one that actually
plaque,
gets
I
you
think.
stoned, or is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the okay?
But
So-
small
so
dose.
I always
small
get
dose
my
does it.
acronyms confused.
All of these things, I
Double
think,
check
bring
this.
us to a very, very simple point. It's like that I think with the judge talking about porn, he says you know it when you see it.
Yeah, it's
And that
cannabinoids.
means-
Yeah.
Remove plaque from Alzheimer's.
There's the way I refer to it is there's the particle form and the wave form of an argument. The particle form is where we can easily quantify what is good and what is bad, and we say this goes in the bad section, this goes in the good section. Like thou shalt not kill, we know that's bad, and but I guess then we got to carve out for like self-defense, and we got to carve out for like warfare and things where we find justifiable death. Okay, well there's some things that are clearly bad. Don't attack people unprovoked for no reason. Bad section. Then when it comes to how do we deal with the liberties of individuals when there's more than one individual in the circumstance that can't be removed from it, and we're like, you know what? There is no easily quantifiable way to define this, and that's what I would describe more as the waveform. It takes a massive gradient of different opinions in different areas, and there's no middle. There really is no middle, because if you're pro-choice, and this is something I recognize, there's going to be abuse of the system. There's going to be people who are like, I'm just going to use abortion as contraception, and I'm like, well, that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
But I'm worried about the government getting it wrong. I'm worried about someone being like, I have this problem, I need an exemption, and the government going, nah. And you're like, why do I have to ask you? Like, it's my life.
I'm honestly not concerned if some guy I don't know kills his own baby that I don't know in India. I just don't care right now. Do you care really?
Yes.
That someone somewhere you've never heard of is destroying an unborn
Yeah.
baby that you've never heard of
That's a
somewhere?
person.
Yeah.
What does that even
Human
have to do
being.
with you in the universe, though?
because I'm not selfish.
But it has nothing to do with you.
It has a lot to do with
If you
me.
get involved, you're being selfish.
No.
What does it have to do with you, man?
See, I believe life exists for the purpose of creating complex systems out of free energy. And I believe that when you look to what we should do and what is good is creation, protection, development, progression, and bad is destruction and
but
chaos and
cancer,
pain.
too much good is cancer.
No,
Too much creation is cancer.
Right, so that's why there's good within evil, there's evil within good, there's yin yang,
There's
the
destruction
golden
within
ratio.
good. There's creation within evil.
Cancer is
You say
disorder.
it's evil creation. You
No,
could
but
say,
cancer is
whatever.
disorder, right? The human body exists as a well-ordered machine that destroys cancerous cells. It's
Amazing.
part of the process to ensure that it persists. But when the machine breaks and cancer develops, it's actually destroying the system and preventing the growth and development of new complex systems. So when I hear stories about people somewhere else doing horrible things and destroying things, I'm like, this goes against what I view life is here to be doing. They are causing massive destruction. That's a negative to the goals of development, creation, progress, etc. So I think it's bad. And it's not just about me. The world isn't about me and my perception, what I want. I don't just exist so that I can have things. I want the world to genuinely improve and be better. And I hope that there's a future out there in 100, 200 years of humans traveling the stars and continuing the development of organizing energy into complex systems. And then eventually they ascend into a higher being of a greater level of development. And then eventually human entity, whatever it is, evolves, develops, creates robots, something else that then starts creating its own universes as the next phase of the creation of complex systems. Destroying things, breaking things for no reason makes me mad.
But there is a reason that is to protect the woman for abortion. Anyway, is the idea. But
I agree with that, right? If there's a woman who would die, or it would cause it would cause destruction, then we intervene. If it's a woman who's simply saying, I'm going to destroy, I'm like, that's bad. The problem is, if the government gets it wrong, and they do all the time, I don't want the government involved. And I understand that it'll be abused, which is a very difficult moral position, but I err towards the libertarian side because I'm scared of what government does with too much power.
Yeah.
Right. I used to have pretty much your exact perspective on that. Like, what do I care if somebody has an abortion? And whatever reasons they choose. I had a pretty decent lefty indoctrination at university. But that changed when when my son was born. Going through that process of pregnancy and birth and then taking care of something that small and fragile totally reversed so I don't think that you can necessarily have that change of perspective unless you go through that yourself. Because, I mean, that's at least where I'm coming from. I mean, you had a very elaborate explanation for your perspective, but for me, it's very personal. And going through that myself, it totally changed my perspective of abortion.
I hope your wife is watching right now, because that's
She is.
the sweetest thing I have heard.
Yeah.
I got a little emotional. I was like, oh my God, I want a baby. That was great. I love that.
Yeah.
We had in the first
That was sweet.
In our first incubation of the baby of the chicken eggs, I had 12 eggs. At one point, one of the eggs started to rot, and I didn't know which one. And I looked online and I checked the data and I asked some people and they said, here's what you could look for, but they were all identical. When I candled them, I took the light and put it in the eggs and I smelled them, and there was more than one that was probably rotten. And then I was like, damn, what do I do? Because they explode. They can burst because the bacteria grows and then it could infect the other eggs. So you've got to get it out of the incubator. And so I said, I candled as many as I could. These look to be fine, and I'm gonna hopefully I'm getting the right ones. And then when I took them out, one of them may have actually been a viable baby chick.
Oh, baby.
And I felt so bad that
sucks.
this life was growing, and you could see it. And one of them was black. Like it was like there were a couple of them where just black came out, like bacteria and gross. And so I was like, I had to do that to preserve the development, the growth, and the creation. And I knew the risk was going to be that I could actually kill one of the new baby chicks, and I may have. And it was a miserable feeling, and I feel absolutely distraught over it. And it was just a chicken. And now we have these 3 little baby chicks that jump around and playing and doing the little chicken thing. And we open the cage and they jump out and they're jumping all around. And they're very nice, and they flap their little wings, and they're adorable, and they're living, and I want to protect them.
Yeah.
And so when I think about the issue of, life and, all this stuff, I absolutely feel that way about other babies. Like, I don't just hold chickens to high esteem. I'm like, it is a painful feeling. Man, I couldn't imagine what it must be to go through that, having to make these decisions or whatever for a person who's had to go to a clinic and deal with this stuff. These are hard moral questions, man, and I am not a priest.
This has been the most unemotional abortion conversation I've ever been part of, and it makes me think, like, how many more conversations could we have as a society where we all have very strong opinions, and what is a more controversial subject than abortion? And we disagree at the table, but boy, oh boy, was this this is like an example of civility. It was very nice to be part of.
Yeah, I like that. It's the Ben Shapiro thing, that facts don't care about your feelings. I think that this is one of those conversations that we need to be able to have, because I know that I disagree with so many people, and they're not going to change my mind, and I'm probably not going to change theirs. But you were talking about cancer, Ian. And you're also talking about maybe like a little baby in India. You just don't really care what happens to them. And I think that if you consider the fact, this is a very cliche, but if you consider the fact that if you're going to take a child out of the equation, you have no idea what their potential is. They could literally cure cancer, but it doesn't matter if they could cure cancer or not, because if they could make one person's life better over the course of their life, whether they have Down syndrome or something, or if they just become a parent who makes a positive difference in the world for their own kids, you're removing that from the equation without ever giving them a shot at life. That's what I have an issue with. It's not really emotional. It's like, you don't F around
I
with
mean-
the potential of human life.
They could be Hitler.
For sure, yeah, obviously.
To be fair.
If they're born to a bad situation, it could
Yeah,
be way worse
that-
than
I
that.
know, and
Yeah.
I
There's
understand
there's good and there's bad people, and but you know I thought about something, especially at why I oppose the death penalty, is because I read stories and I read about people's experiences, and I was reading about death row. And it was like a guy who was going on death row, and at the very last minute, they put a halt or whatever on the
Stay.
a stay on the execution, and then later turned out the guy was wrongly convicted. And then I was like, I could only imagine being told we are going to slowly walk you to a painful death, knowing that soon what makes you, the uniqueness of you, would be snuffed out, and you were innocent. And I was like, that is one of the most horrifying things I feel like a person could ever experience. It's like a mock execution. It's like, you have no power. You have done nothing to deserve this, and we are going to end you now. And this guy was, you know, there's a bunch of stories like this, but I was like, wow, I could not. I believe killing is wrong.
Yeah,
I believe that human beings are all, you know what's funny? We can talk about a Bitcoin, you know, a crypto and its unique hash code, and how there can be trillions upon trillions, all with these unique codes. Humans are like to the 10th power, to the 100th power, unique. Every little bit about them, from their ideas and their developments to the words they use, to the way they speak, to the color of their hair, all become this extremely unique.
You know what? It's
Bit
like
of
you
data.
have to be. You know, how two pieces of matter can't occupy the same space. It's almost like
At the same time.
two formations cannot be the same in this universe. So that we're forced to be unique by becoming different than our surroundings.
I just mean to say that, you know, to quote Dr. Manhattan, or to paraphrase Dr. Manhattan, that, you know, with all the matter in the universe that could have come together, a woman loves a man she had every reason to hate, and all that came was you, a miracle. Something that shouldn't exist. Brilliant
I thought you were talking to
comic and brilliant movie. And so each individual person is...
Yeah, my dad, when I was
miracle.
young, I think we lost our cat or something happened to a cat. And I was like, oh, it was really sad. Oh, the cat, he's so sad. And my dad was like, it's a cat. And I remembered, like, he's based in like a fireman, like a legit blue collar dude. Just like, yeah, that puts it in perspective. It was a cat. Like,
No
what are we
way.
doing here on Earth? It wasn't like you're saying all life is valuable, but you're talking about human life. And
No,
you're
I'm
saying
not.
killing is wrong.
I was
you're
talking about a
murder.
chicken, bro. I was talking about a chicken
That's
that made
how
me
we
feel
opened this.
miserable
it's
because I accidentally made it
it's
feel
a chicken. That's how that was
But
you
there is a
feeling that.
hierarchy of life, though.
Sure.
We respect all life. Like, we shouldn't be killing things, but clearly, like, we do hunt, we eat meat.
Absolutely.
So just to make sure we're not egalitarian in that sense, like, all life is the same.
It's definitely not.
It's definitely not.
And
yeah.
you were saying
But there
killing
are
is
practical
wrong.
reasons not to eat people.
You were saying,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's true too.
Disease,
Yeah.
chronic diseases. And,
Yeah.
But also, it's just like
Although I
morally
would
and
taste
ethically-
good. I'm pretty sure.
you said
pretty sure.
killing was wrong, and I imagine you meant like killing humans was wrong when you were talking about it. But like, is it?
No, killing
it's
is wrong.
Murder is wrong because killing enemy soldiers is right,
Like in more,
according
I don't
to
know.
our society's moral standards.
Probably not. I wouldn't say it's right, but I would say it's justified.
It's justified. It's good for our. For
I
us.
wouldn't say it's good.
Oh,
I'd
it is
say
good
it's-
in war. If you
I-
kill the enemy and you survive, it is good.
Well, in the sense that, like, it's better than he kill you, yes, but I don't think
It's not good.
I don't
net
think.
positive.
Gosh, that would be dangerous as a society if we say, like, it is good that we killed all those Iraqs.
It's less
like,
bad, but it's
that
still
was necessary,
Okay.
justified.
Killing is wrong.
Better I killed him and then he killed me, but
I can't.
God,
I can't.
hope never-
Murder. You could say murder is wrong. I agree with that.
Destruction for destruction for the purpose of destruction. Destruction for the purpose of protecting life is different. When we kill a chicken to eat it, it's because it's part of the process of organizing free energy into complex systems. And in order to survive,
So-
we kill and eat. But if someone went around with a 410 and just popping off people's chickens, they'd arrest them and lock them up.
That's why I'm going after those animals that are eating my chickens.
Yes.
The foxes.
Although he's doing it to eat.
Exactly.
The mom was doing it to feed her cubs. She's just not doing it for my chickens
The
anymore.
fox is justified, so we have dogs.
Yeah.
I get it. It makes me think like, is it? At what point is it murder? Because I think murder is inherently wrong. Pretty much everybody agrees in our society,
Right.
murder is
Yes.
wrong. So, are you murdering the baby? Is it murder or is it killing of a life form that's in development? Like, at what point is it considered murder?
When you do it for no reason other than, you know what, I didn't want this to happen, and whoops, I'm not responsible, so I'll just,
I guess I just feel like the choice to abort is, at best, a poor executive decision on behalf of the mother.
Agreed.
You think it's better to give up for adoption?
I don't know. I don't know. That's really tough to say. I guess there are some circumstances where that would be the case, but not always. Maybe not even the majority of the time.
I so want like people not to get abortions, but man, there's literally in my mind, I keep just hitting a libertarian wall of like, I don't understand why the government intervenes and stops someone from making a decision that I have no business being involved in, other than to protect innocent life. But then I don't know the circumstances. There's no way I could know the circumstances. That means there's going to be a lot of abuse. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
But that is the role of government. At least we have it ordered. Right, we do ask the government to step in. You mentioned Terry Schiavo. We ask the government to step in those circumstances where the vulnerable do not have the ability to protect themselves. Otherwise, let's just kill the homeless. Right? Who advocates for the homeless?
That's very different, man.
Why? What's wrong with them? They're strung out on drugs. They're not coherent. They're
Not
just
contributing.
Not all of them.
contributing
Pose a
to
danger.
society.
Yeah.
They pose a danger. So a lot of them. So if we just get rid of them, is that murder? No, it's just culling. Right? But no, of
definitely
course
murder.
the government steps in as like someone has to protect these people
Right.
from those who would do
But
them harm.
You do bring up a really good point.
What?
When these international elites talk about humans as if they're livestock overpopulating, yeah, they view it in a very utilitarian manner of like, well, if for the betterment of mankind, we've got to do something about X.
Well, what about that? Yeah, like your libertarian sensibilities were saying, you don't want the government to get involved in that. Well, the China one child policy. There are people here in America who talk about population control very comfortably, and the rules that we should have of just one child per family.
You have to be a
way to go with number 2 on the way.
you have to be a sociopath to entertain the notion of culling human beings.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we strive to protect each other and to flourish and to love and to live, and we hold ourselves to the highest hierarchical standard in terms of life.
And hence the genre of post-apocalyptic movies and books, from Hunger Games to the Maze Runner and the choo-choo train in the snow. They're all that same idea.
But what I want to just mention that I did ask Alex Jones this question when we were on the show, and I said, what if they're right? What if we are expanding too rapidly, ignorant to our own impending demise because we're like yeast in a bottle, eating the sugars and farting ourselves to death? What if there needs to be some kind of intervention to make sure humanity survives? And Alex said, it's a tough question. I think about it. I ask myself the question every day, and I just don't know. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.